Hello, Lake Elsinore. This is Steve Manos, mayor for the city of Lake Elsinore, the action sports capital of the world, and this is Lake Elsinore Live. We are here at the Cultural Center live right now, transmitting to you to answer your questions and all the things that you want to know about the city of Lake Elsinore. Gives you an opportunity to go ahead and converse with us directly, and it's just a lot of fun. It's something that I did in previous years as mayor, and certainly is something that gives you an opportunity to do like kind of a forum feeling. We are having a warm day today. It was cool this morning. It's been rainy for the last couple of months. This has provided some phenomenal weather and an opportunity for the lake to really heal. And anybody that hasn't been down to the lake here recently really should go ahead and check that out. The water clarity is amazing. It's something that I really haven't seen in my lifetime living here. And some of that is what we've been doing with respect to water treatment. But some of that is Mother Nature helping out. And I will say that we'll take it either way. So enjoy it while you can. Get out there. I hope everybody has a great summer planned. Spring is in the air, and we are definitely warming up here in the city in many different ways. Today, I have with me our chief of police, if you will. It's Captain James Rayls with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. He is the captain of the Lake Elsinore Station. Why don't you say hello, sir?
Hello. Thank you, Mayor Manos.
Yeah,
appreciate you having me here.
You're
Glad to be here.
We're happy to have you here. Special guest and certainly a respected member of the community that we're going to be focusing a little bit on public safety and law enforcement in that respect as the summer heats up. I notice folks usually find time to get in a little trouble there.
Yeah.
Things tick up just a little bit, I notice, from year to year.
Yeah, school's out and people are out and about.
Yes, absolutely. Troublemakers. I used to be one of those troublemakers. Anyhow, so tell us a bit about yourself. You've been at the Lake Elsinore Station for a couple of years.
Yeah, I've been here for the past 4 years. Prior to that, I was actually here for about 8 years as a new patrol deputy and as an investigator.
How long ago was that?
I came here in late 1999.
Wow.
I was here till 2007. Left, kind of bounced around the county, worked in Moreno Valley, worked the jails, worked out in Temecula at the Southwest Station, and then came back to Lake Elsinore as a lieutenant. So
yeah.
And then here for 2 years as lieutenant, and then picked up the captain spot. So
the lieutenant term is where my memory, I got to start recognizing your face and your name and whatnot, and then of course you were promoted to captain, and certainly it's been good. It's been a good tenure, quite frankly.
It's been great. Yeah, I feel like I came back home when I after leaving and starting here, and I knew everything about the city at that time. Obviously, it changed a lot in the 14 years I was gone, but I was still here shopping and going to restaurants and stuff. But
no
so
question.
I kind of kept up on things. But coming back home. It was great.
That's phenomenal. So talk to us a little bit about what's happening right now. I have to say that I've noticed that the city has gone through a time period where the nature of the crime changed. And I'm just going back to when I was a kid and growing up, and there was some LA street gangs that were, prominent here. We had, some troubles with the remnants of the biker gangs that were here in the 70s and whatnot. And there was some real trouble here, the real problems. And now I think a lot of our issues are related to quality of life and theft and like some property stuff, but the heavy stuff, like the violent crime stuff, has been well in check for about, and that's a testament to my predecessors who invested heavily in law enforcement in the 90s and 2000s. So maybe you can speak a little bit.
No, I agree to that, and I can attest to it because I was here during that time. When I first came here, we'd have 8 to 10 homicides in 1 year.
Yeah.
Mostly gang related, like you said. I worked on our special enforcement team for quite a while. Worked gangs here. Worked a lot of the drugs and a lot of the labs. We had a lot of labs at that time, and like you said, a lot of the biker gang mentality that was here. It was more of a violent city at that time. I was able to be on one of the teams that actually went out and we were serving search warrants daily, trying to clean that up. And right before I left, about that time, I became investigative for the last 2 years. Worked more into dealing with sex crimes and dealing with our sex registrants. But during that time, I saw a big change.
Right.
It started changing in around 2007, 2008. And when I came back, it was a completely different place as far as crime goes. Now we're dealing more with thefts. Thefts is big. Some burglaries, stolen vehicle type stuff. A lot of the violent crimes that we have, very few and far between. Anything violent that's an uptick right now is usually related to domestic violence, which brings those numbers up because it's still a violent crime.
Absolutely.
But as far as the shootings and that type of thing, it's almost non-existent right now, which is good.
I agree with that, and I know I feel safer. But you did mention something that I've noticed that we can credit to a recent decision, I think, and that's the automobile thefts are way down this year. I mean, there is a big difference in auto thefts.
It's down a good 50-60%. We actually saw an uptick a few years back because after Prop 47, a lot of the crimes changed from misdemeanors, from felonies to misdemeanors. So we were dealing with that. Their vehicle theft, we would arrest somebody for vehicle theft and they'd be out within a few hours.
Yeah.
So trying to deal with that, it was getting tough. But when flock cameras came along, which are automated license plate reader cameras, once those came along and the city purchased those, we were able to get real-time information on vehicles that were stolen, not in just our area, but from everywhere. So once we started getting arrests with the flock cameras and solving crimes and doing further investigations, I think that's now everybody knows that those cameras are out there and that we're going to arrest them, we're going to catch them.
Describe what the flock cameras do.
The flock cameras, it's an automated license plate reader. We have several throughout the city, and what it does is it just reads license plates as vehicles come through. You can also put in other information as far as bumper stickers, colors of vehicles, type of vehicles, any other thing that's on the vehicle, and it'll actually hit on that if it doesn't read the license plate. So whenever a vehicle is stolen or a wanted person is out there, if there's a missing person at risk, all that information is fed into Flock real time.
But these are not we're not monitoring people's conduct or activity.
No, we can't see who's in the vehicle.
Right.
They're not for red light, green light. They're not for those type of enforcement. It's strictly just an investigative tool for us to be able to get information on those license plates when we're either looking for somebody that's a missing person at risk, sometimes an elderly, or a wanted person that's.
I recall recently there was, I think, an armed robbery at a certain establishment. I won't name the establishment, but it was somebody came in with a gun and then took off, and they had a license plate on the vehicle, and you guys tracked that guy down in like 3 hours, and he went to a different city. It was, I think, Moreno Valley, if I'm not mistaken.
This is happening almost daily. Not just here. Like you said, Moreno Valley, we just had one last week. There was a carjacking that occurred. We got a hit on the vehicle here in Lake Elsinore and got that person in custody within about 5 minutes. Investigators come from Moreno Valley, came here and took them, and we solved their crime for them. This is happening all throughout the county. And it's not just the sheriff's department. We have most of the police departments throughout our county also have the flock cameras. So we have access to all of each other's cameras, so we're all working together on solving this issue. But that's your main reduction in not only vehicle theft, but in other crimes also.
Now, I'm just monitoring. We got Denise the Great and LEUSD Pro. Guys, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much. But one of the questions that I get commonly from the public has to do with homelessness, for instance. Okay, so I had a guy call. He's like, "Hey, man, somebody's basically squatting on my vacant land." And he goes through, he's called the police before, but he's having trouble, and real nice guy. Cause he's like, I'm not trying to be mean. He's got a bunch of his stuff there. So I gave him a week to leave, and I'm like, you can't give him a week to leave. It's like this guy came in and sat on your couch to go ahead and started watching TV and brought his clothes over. You have to deal with these issues. Talk about vacant land a little bit and some things that folks can do to be proactive to defend their land against that type. Because this guy's going to run into like thousands of dollars in cleanup now. He's the guy. They've even towed cars onto the property, and it's causing problems.
Well, obviously, I mean, it's great if you can put a fence around your property and put up no trespassing signs. But there's a lot of vacant land out here where we do not have, fences around it. But you do have a parcel, and what you need to do is fill out what's called a 602 trespass letter. You can do that online. You can do it through the city now. You can come to the station and fill one out. And what happens is we keep that information. And what it does is it gives you, the owner of the property, it gives us permission from you to be able to enforce any trespassing issues on this property. So we don't have to call you in the middle of the night. We don't have to get a hold of you to say, hey, do you want this person arrested? So it's kind of a private person's arrest ahead of time.
Got it.
That goes along with the report, the form with your signature, giving us authority to do that. So then it goes along with the report to the district attorney's office.
So I don't think people realize, the limitations on government agencies, right? So, you have this thing called the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and they're very important, and they protect, individuals in certain instances from their own government. And one of the things that that dictates is that the police can't just go on to private property whenever they want, just because, right? They have to either see something that's happening actively, or they have to be able to, and they have to also know that there's no permission that's been given.
Correct.
Otherwise, it kind of falls to code enforcement, and so the police can't just go in there and it can bonk people over the head and throw them in the back of a paddy wagon and haul them off, right? Like I think that's kind of the expectation, and that's not the reality, obviously. The 602 letter says, and I wouldn't sign one for my house, right? Because that's your house, right? But for vacant land, a 602 letter certainly gives the law enforcement officers permission to go ahead and go on site, even if whether it's somebody else that's calling for a problem that's on site, or whether it's you, if it's your property and whatnot too. So it's a huge tool that we can utilize to basically put the police in a position where they can go ahead and be effective.
And it also assists code enforcement. They can also enforce also.
Absolutely.
So we work with them. A lot of times they'll call us out with them and we
Right.
deal with it together. So.
And then in code enforcement, it works under police powers through the city too. So there's a different type of enforcement, obviously, and certainly a different type of training. We don't want code enforcement officers being police officers and vice versa, right? So it gets a little confusing sometimes to the public when they don't understand that they'll call code enforcement, and they'll think that it's code enforcement case, and code enforcement say you gotta call the police. Yeah. And there's a reason, because the different types of training and whatnot. How long do those 602 letters last?
Now they last for a year.
Okay.
3 years. Sorry, it used to be a year.
Yes.
Up until recently, there's a new law enacted to where now it's every year, so you don't have to fill it out
annually.
Annually,
right.
You can do it once every 3 years.
And so the purpose for the expiration was to make sure that people didn't sign off on it, and then it just stayed there in perpetuity. But a year was also kind of problematic too, right?
A year was problematic because we're constantly having to go and seek out an additional 602 letter. Time goes by quick. People forget.
Now, grocery stores, retail, other retail establishments, they can also go ahead and
yes, all businesses can do the same.
That's huge.
Yes.
That's big, and I think that's part of the I think unfortunately that people call, and then they feel like nothing can be done, so they stop calling, right? To some extent, and to some extent, again, you can't just arrest people for being in bad clothing, or not having taken care of themselves or whatnot. That's not against the law. Obviously, being homeless is not against the law. But folks that are not conducting themselves appropriately or exposing themselves, sometimes doing it in a blatant way, or those with mental health issues where it could be kind of a dangerous situation for others. These are the things that I think that really need to have called to attention, and I think that's what the public expects, and I think that's what you guys expect too. So please call the police if you see an act of crime in action. Please 911's the number, right? If you see something that's not an active crime and an occurrence, then there's a non-emergency line, which you can find very easily. Just Google Lake Elsinore non-emergency police line, and you'll find that number, and you leave a message, and they will respond. They respond to every call. Thank you, and I appreciate all of that. Did you have some statistics or whatnot that you wanted to talk about a little bit?
Well, I just have some statistics for this last year's statistical report from 2023. So right now, crime is down roughly across the board 11% from the prior year. Property crimes, which are your thefts, your vehicle thefts, burglaries, those types of things, those are down 20%.
Wow.
Now, our violent crime has a slight uptick, which made it even out to about 11%, and most of that's related to domestic violence. So
amazing.
A lot of the assaults we have are domestic violence related, so most of the uptick was in that.
Okay.
So even about 9% across the board.
I've got a question from John. Let's see here. So John's asking, how are we dealing with gangs in town, specifically in the downtown area?
We have a gang task force that we have 2 prior deputies that worked for us. One's on the Southwest Regional Task Force, gang task force, and then we have one that's out of the parish-related area. So we kind of squeeze it from both angles. And that gang task force actually works with our special enforcement team. Those officers, those deputies are supervised by our special enforcement team sergeant, even though they have separate sergeants that run their team. So they kind of all work together.
Okay.
So if we have something going on in the city that's gang related, we push it out to our gang task force deputies so they can kind of look into it and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. They usually have the intel of everything that's going on anyways. But they'll come out, they'll do enforcement days. Both teams will do enforcement days here. We team up with them sometimes and do enforcement days with them. But a lot of it's intel related, and they keep on top.
Did the nature of gang it seems like the nature of gang activity has changed over the past couple of decades, where it used to be very prominent and open. Lots of tagging, lots of just people wearing clothing that signified their affiliation and things of that nature, and now you don't really see much of that. Maybe changed. I'm just getting old. I'm not sure.
No, even the clothing changed.
Okay.
A gang member now could dress like a skater and have a skateboard, and it's changed. It's changed a lot from what it was. They stood out.
Yeah.
Now they don't stand out anymore. A lot of them are younger.
Okay.
Now mostly middle school, younger high school age.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we're dealing more with those clubs. Some of them are crews, some of them are clubs that are turning into gangs. So we're trying to stop that before it happens.
Does it still center around like a marketing of drugs or it used to be really affiliated with like drugs or prostitution or things of that nature? Is that still the case?
Still drug related. It's still making money.
Okay.
But a lot of it starts out with tagging.
Okay.
And those crews going back and forth, and it ends up being more of a criminal enterprise. But we're at the point right now to where we're trying to kind of stifle that before it even happens.
That's amazing.
So that's where we're at right now. We're just keeping on top of it, managing it.
I think you're doing a good job. And then homelessness. So we have Ashley who's asking. She'd like to know, how is homelessness being dealt with in the historic downtown area?
Just specifically in the historic downtown area?
That's her question. But you can talk about, we can talk about.
Homelessness is a tough issue. We've been over this so many times. It's changed over the years. It started changing in 2014 when Prop 47 was enacted, to where it took away our teeth to be able to deal with a lot of the homeless crimes. A lot of it's drug possession and drug usage. A small amount of possession of drugs, prior to that year, it'd be a felony. We can get them off the street. We can get them some help.
Yep.
Now it's a misdemeanor, so it's pretty much a citation, sometimes a book and release real quick. Thefts, petty theft with a prior conviction, used to be a felony. Yep. Now it's back down to where it's just a petty theft. And you have to have over $950 stolen in order to make it a felony, which doesn't happen very often, especially within the homeless community. It's just small stuff. But it used to give us some teeth to be able to enforce that, get them in jail once again, and get them some help.
The killer for Prop 47 to me is, somebody with a first time drug or even a petty theft, issue, sometimes that's correctable with, good scare, right? the repeat offenders, the part of Prop 47 that really kills me is the guys that go out and do it over and over and over again. And I think that section of Prop 47, the fact that you cannot escalate the punishment any further than a misdemeanor means that it's for somebody who's willing to go ahead and put up with the harassment of maybe a cite and release or an arrest and release. There's there's no real punishment. It's not just the teeth on the initial grab. You know what I mean? You can arrest we can arrest people and take them to jail, but once they go to jail, the agreement with the French Valley Jail specifically is that with the residents that live around there was that they're going to get a ride back to wherever they need to get to afterwards, right? So they didn't want the criminals hanging around the jail, right?
They come right back,
right, which is fair, you know what I mean? But it also means that often the criminals are getting back on the streets before the police officers that have arrested them have filled out the report that's necessary, the paperwork that's necessary to actually prosecute the crime.
Many of them we arrest weekly, if not daily.
Yeah.
And you'll find that a lot of them have over 15, 20 warrants for the same thing. And we just issue them citation for those warrants into an additional charge.
Right.
And then it comes back out because they don't show up to court, and it comes out to a warrant again. So it's just multiple warrants.
Right.
And it really has to be a high amount of warrant before you could even hold them in jail.
And then, so just to expand on the homeless and what we're doing with respect to the downtown area, the city, it's not just a policing thing, right? So we also have to go ahead and kind of set the stage to go ahead and deal with those types of issues. So, most people will notice over the years, not only did we make a big effort to go ahead and clean up the area by painting the buildings and then fixing the roads and adding crosswalks and kind of decorating the place. We added music, better lighting. We certainly did direct police and code enforcement to go ahead and do better enforcement. We also went to the nonprofits that were feeding people in the parks and said, hey, you need to feed out of your own establishments and work with the police officers. And this is where we had it's Cops and Clergy originally, and I think that kind of evolved into the whole partnership with SWAG, which is what we are currently working with now. That we have the outreach team, the police outreach team that gets together with our code enforcement team and also with our nonprofit team, and these guys go out and they patrol, they hit hot spots. Obviously we receive reports from the public, and so they go hit hot spots, and you can talk a little bit
specific
about
to our downtown. What we started doing, and I have to keep reminding our patrol shifts, is when our graveyard shift comes in, I have them come through the Main Street area, go through a lot of the alleyways and behind the businesses, in front of the businesses, and make sure they contact any homeless that are here sleeping prior to those businesses opening, so we could move them on their way pretty much, and deal with and run for warrants and see if we can take anybody to jail, that type of thing, or try to get them some help. So I've got patrol actually doing that also. So after the graveyard come in, they do that. And then we have our other shifts coming throughout the day, doing spot checks. And then I also have our one of our community service deputies. He's actually in contact now with the businesses. He's walked to the businesses and passed out his card. And that way, if they have a complaint or any issue, they can call him directly.
That's awesome.
That way they don't have to come to me or come to the city, then come to me, and then finally it gets to him. That way they could deal with it right away. And he works also with the special enforcement team, so if he needs help, he can get other additional deputies out here to help out.
One of the things I notice is that, especially with the chronically homeless, they've kind of, you think about somebody who's homeless, they literally don't have a place where they can crash, which means that they've burned bridges with, family, friends, spouses, kids, aunts, uncles, employers, the whole 9 yards, all the way down, and now we're dealing with them. And I can't help but notice that a lot of what we do comes almost from a parental standpoint, right? I mean, it's just, these are the things that they might have been missing, earlier in life that might have kept them on a good track. But, there's also some sympathy there because a lot of these guys, especially the ones that have been homeless for years, they don't have IDs, or they don't have a social security card. So the idea of like going out and getting a job, for instance, is absolutely impossible. No. And I think I also would notice, and this is just my perception over the past 12 years of being on the council, the other perception that I have is that while we do sometimes get an influx of folks from outside the area, 9 times out of 10, the homeless people that I've encountered here have a connection to Lake Elsinore. They're here because if they get sick, if they need a sandwich, or if they need a shower, or something significant happens, they have a lifeline out here that they can reach out to. People don't just come here because it's a great, it gets 100 and something degrees in the summer. I mean, it's got to be miserable, in some respects. But I don't know. Maybe I'm off base.
No, you're correct. Most are from the area. If we do find homeless that are new that come into our area, if they're from Temecula, from Paris, from one of our other stations, we have an agreement with other departments as well as our stations that they go back to the city where they're from, so that the city can focus on those resources with that homeless person. So, and the vice versa. If we have one of our local homeless that's always here that goes to Riverside, we'll end up bringing them back here, offering them help and try to get them help.
I remember the guy that came through with the donkey. Which was, he was just one of those happy hobo guys. He came through, he passed through the area, he let us know he was coming. He's like, I'm just going to go ahead and rest here in the park. And then he made his way, and he was actually, I mean, I wish every story was like that, but, unfortunately that's not the reality. So Maya Garcia, Maya is asking, what is happening with the drug addicts by Circle K?
Not sure which Circle K.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. I'll help her out here on this one. I think she's talking about Riverside Drive, which seems to be kind of like the nexus of. I mean,
most of the ones we're dealing with over at Circle K area are our local homeless. Yeah. There's a big group that likes to stay there, and we're constantly contacting them. But they walk around Circle K and that whole area around Riverside and Lakeshore, so we know who they are.
Yeah.
Some of the graffiti comes up there too that the city's constantly having to paint over. But most of those are our local homeless, but most of them have a drug problem also.
Yeah. I noticed that some of the homeless folks intermingle, especially the ones that are involved in drugs, or maybe it's alcohol. But, there's undefended land down there, so it makes for a great camping site, right? Free camping. And then you get folks that have perfectly good homes that go in and they hang out with these people because they've known them for years. And it's just, so sometimes you see somebody that you think is homeless, they're not even homeless. It's just weird.
Yeah, they do hang out with them, and then a lot of times they'll congregate and move over to an abandoned house somewhere, and then we deal with it inside the abandoned house.
Oh boy.
So kind of move around.
Lock your homes if you own property. Let's see here. Maya, also from Instagram, asks a second question. What do you do when you see people doing drugs in the alley? And I think she means, what does a resident do when they see active drug use, illicit drug use?
If you see active drug use, just call dispatch right away.
Yeah.
So we can respond to deputy. We might have a deputy right in that area that can respond quickly. Because if we actually catch them with the drugs, doing the drugs, we can take them to jail for possession and being under the influence, and solve a problem then right away. And then we can pull in swag at the same time if they're homeless and try to get them some help.
Yeah, one of the things I've heard is it's very effective when you got a homeless individual, or even if it's just a person who's drug addicted, and the officer shows up, swag's on site, and this person's waiting to be taken, and swag's like, hey man, yeah, are you tired of this yet? Are you tired? Usually doesn't work the first time, right? The second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh
eventually
time, eventually the message and again it almost becomes like a parental thing, which is not the proper role of government, but we're jumping in. Somebody's got to break that cycle, man.
And they're more likely to take services and help when they're at their lowest, when they're getting arrested.
Yeah.
So usually we'll pull swag out there at the same time. I mean, we're arresting them, but the swag can talk to them and tell them, hey, you're going to be out in 4 hours. We'll come pick you up and we'll take you to where you need to be to get some help. Okay. So it's usually, we work together. It's a team.
Yeah. And I would say that it has been a better team effort, especially since 2014. I think this is when everybody recognized that there was going to have to be something done. And then, of course, we also passed the tax measure, which allowed us to go ahead and dedicate some additional funding. So thank you to the residents for trusting us with that, and we're trying to go ahead and utilize that. I got a couple of other comments just about there's some stuff off Grand Avenue that's not in the city of Lake Elsinore typically, right? Most of Grand Avenue's in the county, but we do service Lakeland Village from the Lake Elsinore station. I know you have a responsibility over that.
Yes.
I know you're not as well funded to do things over there as you are probably within the city.
More so than we used to be, I would say. Our station area shrunk when the Lake Matthews station came on board, so I no longer have to patrol from Lake Street to Corona.
Oh, I did
to the
not
city of
know
Corona.
that. That's
so,
great news.
so we no longer, out of our station, have to patrol that area. I kept the same amount of deputies, so I was able to take more resources from the Temescal Valley area and put them towards Lakeland Village and La Cresta. So now we have more of a presence over there than what we used to have.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it has helped.
Yeah,
It
I
has
would say.
increased.
That's impressive, and a big thanks to the county for
Yeah.
helping make that happen. That's huge, and it serves both, I think, the Temescal Valley area as well as the city, as we can use all the resources we can get. Right. Danny asked, what can be done about the amount of speeding and injury/fatality crashes that are happening on Railroad Canyon Road? I know traffic enforcement is done with motors, but it doesn't appear to be helping a great deal.
Yeah. I can say that our fatalities, we haven't had any fatalities this last year, which was good.
Right.
That was a big decrease. Our injury traffic collisions were down also. So the enforcement we're doing is helping. You may not see it because it's everywhere. It's tough because every community throughout the city, every HOA, every school calls for extra patrol for traffic-related
Right.
incidents. And like I could tell the residents that we could have 30 motors, which would be astronomical for the city to pay for. You're still not going to deal with all the traffic issues that we have. So the best thing to do is to call in. I get the calls. My traffic sergeant get the calls. My traffic lieutenant gets calls. We make sure that those are on the list and that we're dealing with those areas. We know the areas that are having issues, but sometimes there might be an issue somewhere that we don't know about. So make sure you're calling.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's immediate, just call dispatch right away, and we can get deputies over there. And our traffic unit, our motors respond pretty quickly to in progress traffic issues.
That's I certainly agree that and there needs to be an educational component. I mean, at some point, the city and the police officers, we're not encouraging people to speed, obviously, and or to look at their phones while they're driving. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to prevent that from happening, and there has to be a modicum of responsibility of the drivers. So make sure you're raising your kids right. Make sure you're talking to them about that. Certainly, the residents can go ahead and help just by being good examples.
Yeah.
Try not to drive with road rage. I know it's a 6-lane road, right? It's a 6-lane road, so it feels like a freeway, but it's not a straight. It's got a grade, and so folks, be careful.
Yes.
Right?
Traffic tickets are not cheap, so
And the traffic tickets aren't cheap. You can
you
save
would
yourself
think
money.
that would work there, but it helps. But yeah, it doesn't solve it.
The Millennial Investment Guide. All right, so Maya, trying to keep this light. Maya, what Maya's got a lot of great questions today, by the way. What can the community do to better support our officers?
Well, I would say for one thing, be supportive. Thank them when you see them. It goes a long way. It does go a long way. The city does an excellent job in giving us the resources we need, so I have no complaints there. We work with the city manager's office closely, and when we need something, we pretty much get it
Okay.
as quickly as we need it. So just the community through the city, that support is great. But also calling in when something's happening. We're seeing kind of a new phenomenon lately to where everything's thrown on Facebook and Instagram. It's all on social media. This crime occurred, that crime occurred. We have some of our deputies in our community services division that actually reads through a lot of this, and we're finding crimes that have occurred that are talking about on Facebook and on Instagram, and we don't know about the crime. This is something we should have investigated. And we're not getting calls on a lot of this stuff. So a lot of the support is calling in so we know what's going on.
Yeah.
We also have a crime analyst that maps everything that's going on throughout the city. I get heat maps every week, sometimes twice a week, of different crimes that are going on, of traffic-related issues. I get heat maps. I know where to push my resources to better
So
help
part
the
of
city.
you-
So
part of your
calling in
job-
is huge.
Yeah. Part of your job is to read those
Yes,
heat maps and to
that's
go ahead
exactly.
and deploy resources where you see that they're best
Yes.
fit. That's huge.
Time of
Okay.
day, that type of thing also.
All right. Well, all right. So I did see another question. It's not police related, but I am going to go ahead and address it. Uh, you're off the hot seat for a moment while we wait. But one of the questions was about the outlet center, and the question was, what is the city planning on doing to help revitalize the outlet center? The city stands ready to go ahead and assist the ownership of the outlet center. Outlet center is privately owned. And so we have an economic development team that consistently goes out and reaches out. We just hired a new person from Menifee to actually help us recruit new, and we'll probably do an interview with her on the next podcast. But we're actively recruiting stores and franchises to come out and actually work with the city, and placement and whatnot's important. But ultimately, the way that the outlets is managed, the way that it's kept up, the way that they decide for tenant placement and whatnot, those are all private decisions. We can't dictate their rents. We don't dictate some of the other things that would be unfair for us to commit taxpayer resources to their particular location specifically. So it's on them. These folks came in, they invested in the property, they asked the city for some help. In terms of allowing them to demolish a few buildings, redo the parking lot, put up some billboards. The city also went ahead and did its part by completing the median that ran in that area, which had never been landscaped. So we did that at about the same time, and unfortunately, it seems like we haven't had much of a change, and so. This may be the ownership. Maybe it's time for the ownership to go ahead and sell to another group that has better contacts or resources. Perhaps there's a better mousetrap that can be built. I'm not positive, but we continue to be in a position where we're ready to go ahead and listen and support different ideas that they may have on what they'd like to do with their property. So we have another question here. This is from, sorry, I got a glare here. So Aletha. Would you prefer we report homeless encampments and litter on Alert LE, or should we be calling the non-emergency line?
Just for encampments in general, I would say Alert LE, because
Yeah.
we get that information pretty quick. That information comes over to me pretty fast through Alert LE. Plus, we keep track of it also, in what's going on. But if you want to make sure it's taken care of, do both.
So the homeless encampments is kind of a group effort sort of thing, right? Because the police will go in and they'll deal with, the individuals, but then the code enforcement and our public works guys are the ones that go in and actually clear the place out. And then swag, usually there's a plan that's put together to go ahead and deal with the homeless encampment. And so that happens about once per week. Swag will come in and they'll go ahead and offer the services that these folks may need in order to end their cycle of homelessness. So, Alert LE, I just got to sing the praises for the Alert LE app. It is huge. It really is a big tool and has changed the game for us in terms of accountability and reporting. If you don't have that, you can download it to your phone through the Google Play Store or through the Apple Store. It's free. And what happens is when you actually report an incident, and this could be a pothole, it could be a homeless encampment, it could be a lot of different things. The lights, the street lights, sometimes people have a street lamp that's out, and it just makes all of that a lot easier because the app literally takes where you're at. It drops a pin basically for our guys on our side. And then when it's dealt with, you're going to get a report back, meaning you're going to get an alert on your Alert LE app that says, hey, thanks for the report. We're going to get back with you. Oh, by the way, this has been dealt with, and this is how it was disposed of in terms of how that was dealt with. And even better than that is if you just have the app and you want to be nosy, you can go to the map feature and you can go ahead and see what everybody else has reported on the app and see it in its full glory. You mentioned something before where today's day and age, we have social media and stuff gets reported on social media that people don't even want to call the police for, which is, it's mind-boggling because if you don't call the police, how is it going to get dealt with, right? And so there's a lot of things that happen on social media that seem like they're reality, But if you had a proper investigation, it might not be what you think it is,
Exactly.
right? Or sometimes it's worse than what you think
Yeah.
it is. So it's just call the police, report it on the
Please.
alert LE. Please help us help you. All right, we got another question. How many deputies are assigned to Lake Elsinore?
Just Lake Elsinore City.
Yeah.
Through our patrol division, we have contract hours, and how that works is it works out to about 30 deputies for just patrol division. So that's hours. That's just patrol related, but the city also pays additionally for our motor officers, which we have 4 of those and a sergeant. We also have accident investigators. The city pays for 5 community service officers now, and we also have a special enforcement team, which is 5 and a sergeant. In addition, we also have community services, CSO on our community services, and a deputy on our community services. So at a given time, you can't just go off with patrol. I'll have 15 deputies at a given time within the city.
Wow.
At different times.
Yeah.
So we also have additional deputies that are around the city. I have right around 100 sworn deputies that work out of the Lake Elsinore station, 120 staff. So we have access to, a lot of deputies at one time if we need them. We also have the city through the contract also has 9 investigators that we have at the station dealing with all of our investigations. So
I noticed that the priority 1 calls are 2-3 minutes response times, something like that, and usually there's a pretty good show of force. There was a BB gun versus a handgun situation off of Mission Trail a little while back, and fortunately nobody got hurt. But I knew about it because people were calling because of the show of force. They didn't even hear the commotion. They saw the show of force. They were like, "What's going on?" So
yeah, and that's a good one to look at. I mean, we had probably 8 of our own deputies at that location within a minute. I myself was there within 3 to 4. We had our SWAT team was based out of the Paris area that was already on their way and showed up with canines.
Yeah.
So we had a good 20, 30 deputies down here with the SWAT team pretty quickly. Wow. Within 20 minutes, because a code run from Paris is pretty short. So it's nice having them so close. Most of our special teams throughout the county is right there in Paris, so they respond pretty quickly. So that's a good one to show how the contract works and how we work well together.
Yeah, and certainly if there was something very significant that happened, what a lot of people don't understand is with the sheriff's contract, mutual aid and whatnot, we could end up pulling people from all over the county to go ahead and respond to something that's significant. If it was, I don't know. I'm trying to think. It would probably be something fire or earthquake related that would trigger that type of response. But
and I know sometimes people look at response times and they're thinking, okay, I had this past burglary with no suspect information. Why did it take 45 minutes to an hour from a deputy to get here? So they're thinking that's our response time.
Right.
Which that's not the case. We have priorities 1, which is our highest, all the way down to 4 and 5.
Right.
So we have to honestly deal with our 1s and 2s and 3s first before we can get to those lower priority. So sometimes deputy will be responding to your call and they get bumped off of it for a higher priority. So you got to have patience with those lower priority because we got to get to those higher priorities first.
My favorites, usually on 4th of July, a couple of days after 4th of July, I field complaints from folks who called about a fireworks thing, and they saw fireworks. They don't know where they were shot from. They don't know who had anything to do with it, right? So they really don't have a lot of information, and there's hundreds of those calls that come and happen all the time. I mean, you guys
all
get
at once.
like 200 calls a day as it is, right?
Yeah, with that, yeah.
And
we're right around 200 a day.
And so on top of all of that, you have those types of complaints, and then they don't understand why it takes 4 hours for the police to go ahead and, because every time they show up, they've got to write a report and they got to make notes. They got to do their job, right? And that takes time.
Yeah. So higher priority stuff will be there quickly.
So
lower priority, you just got to be patient.
We need to hire like 1,000 police officers just for that day. No. It doesn't work that
not
way,
affordable.
guys. That's not a real idea. Okay. All right. So Brad Page says Rosetta Canyon Sports Park, people doing fireworks, burnouts, donuts, drifting in the parking lot. Can you help stop that?
Yeah, make sure you're calling in, like I said earlier, and then we can get out there. We have to get out there quickly when those things are going on. We don't have cameras that we're viewing and watching 24/7. It'd be nice if we can get to that point to where we're actually watching the parks and in that in real time, but we don't have that. So as soon as you hear it from your house, even you can hear it any racing, call them. Just say, hey, we need an area check here. Yeah. We'll come out. But we're constantly on the parks. A lot of this stuff occurs after hours. During regular hours of the parks, that's when we spend most of our time. We have a parks deputy, and that's what he does. He goes around all the parks and patrols them and deals with any crime related to the parks. But there's so many parks within the city, it's hard for one deputy to do that. But we put out to the deputies whenever they're, if they have to write a report or something, to sit at the parks and write the report there. That's why you'll see some deputies sometimes sitting at a park, just to provide that extra, security and make people feel secure at those parks. But but those things are hard to stop. I mean, because it happens within a second.
And it's flash and boom, gone. You know what I mean? Like, unless there's an accident or something that
sometimes we get lucky.
Them. Yeah, right.
Sometimes we get lucky and we're patrolling and catch them. But
the crazy thing is that, and this probably applies to a lot of different laws or law offenders. Excuse me. Is that if you're talking about like a rash of car thefts that happen, right? Yeah. Or if you're talking about like the burnouts or even just graffiti or anything, it's not a lot of people. It's not everybody, right? No. You catch the guy or the gal that's doing it, and all of a sudden it all goes quiet for a while, and that's just my experience.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's funny that because that is true. you can catch somebody and then the stuff will stop. I mean, we've had let's take window smash burglaries to where you're getting 5 or 6 windows smashed in the middle of the night. And you're like, who's doing this? Because all they're taking is cigarettes, alcohol, something of that nature. All of a sudden we catch somebody and it stops until they're back out of jail. But yeah, that is true. There's very few people doing crime, but it just seems like a lot.
It goes back to the
same thing with the homeless. We don't have a big homeless count here in the city, but it seems like you see the homeless all the time because they're out and about.
Well, that was something we were warned about. When I became onto the council, this is one of the first things we were like, we're going to deal with the homeless. And one of the things I was warned about was, you understand what you're asking for, right? And I was like, well, what does that mean? They're like, well, they're in the bushes now. You flush them out of the bushes, they're going to be on the streets. Yep. Do you really want to deal with this problem this way? And the answer was, hell yeah, we'll take the hits. You know what I mean? And good to staff and law enforcement and whatnot. You guys have been great about that.
I worked the POP team back when I was here. From 2000 to 2003, I worked on the POP team at the city that actually dealt with the homeless. And the homeless count at that time was 4 times higher than what it is like now. Sometimes 5 times higher.
Wow.
It's just like you said, they stayed in the bushes. But during that time, that was before Prop 47, to where we had some teeth to arrest them, so they stay hidden. And the camping laws changed with Martin v. Boise. Yeah, back in 2017, I believe. And that changed to where we can't enforce illegal camping.
Unless we have space.
In public places, unless we actually have beds, right. Which is where the anchor comes in. The city solved that problem. We have beds, so now we can do that. But they still feel more emboldened to come out and camp throughout the city wherever they like on sidewalks. And
it seems that way.
So they're just more out in the open now, but it is less than what it used to be.
I agree. It always gives us a little something extra to deal with here. What else we got here? Let's see other questions. Oh, lots of questions here. Teresa writes, hello, can you explain to folks why a no left turn is allowed next to Taco Bell by Walmart and between Farmer Boys and Wiener Schnitzel?
A no left turn. I know exactly what you're talking about because we get a lot of complaints. There's a no left turn when you turn out of there. You can only turn right because it is too close to the light control right there on Dexter.
Yeah,
and it creates a big hazard. We've had accidents there when people pull out and someone's turning right and they hit. So there's a no left turn sign there.
And then from an engineering standpoint, that it probably was dictated by Caltrans because it does run right along Highway 74. Highway 74, whenever Highway 74 is involved, Caltrans jumps in. You got to remember that a highway is designed to convey large amounts of traffic over a long distance and primarily and as cities develop and you get highways that are essentially running through cities and development occurs, that congests a highway and it works completely against what the whole idea of a highway's intent is supposed to be. So Caltrans, and we're blessed to have Highway 74 just like run right in the middle of the city. So, you know, we don't get to make decisions as a city, a local municipality, and we can't be as responsive to the residents when it comes to things like widening, you know, Riverside Drive. I mean, the city will let us do it, but really, the state's supposed to. They've been the one collecting the fees for decades. They're the ones that are supposed to go ahead and do that. Or let's take the light over on Gunnarsson and Riverside Drive, Highway 74. You know, we were willing to pay for that light. The state literally wouldn't let us do it. And what we ended up making as far as an improvement was a compromise, mostly because they have specific guidelines in terms of what kind of cross traffic that we have. All right, so we're down to 10 minutes right now. Let's do a lightning round here. If we have lots of questions here. Can you put a motorcycle officer on Running Deer Road between the hours of 4 and 6 p.m.? The new Running Deer Estates residents think that the street is a quarter-mile racetrack.
I've received many complaints on Running Deer. We are putting resources out there. The time does help because a lot of what we're having out there resources is mostly in the morning. Okay. So having in the evening, that gives me information. But yeah, shoot me an email on that or call and let me know and remind me.
Good information, guys. What can you do about people selling and doing drugs at Rosetta Canyon Sports Park? Wow, I didn't even hear about that one. Go ahead.
They're probably referring to the skate park there because that's where we have
Rosetta. No. Rosetta Canyon.
I was thinking, not Rosetta.
Probably out of the fields.
Out of the fields, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially
you're going to find that at most of the parks. Most of it is kids. But like I said, we're out there at the parks as much as we can. But call.
I mean, the answer is you know, make the call. If you see, folks, if you see an active crime in progress, call the police.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, there is no crime too small. Just call the police because if they don't know, then there's no way for them to respond. You might have a deputy nearby that's responding to something else, and that's an easy grab. And you know, once somebody gets caught doing that, they're not going to do it there again. They're going to look for someplace else to go ahead and do it.
Especially the kids, because they're going to get arrested. They're going to be sent back to their parents, and we're going to have a talk with the parents, you know, about that issue. So a lot of times that kind of curtails that crime before they even start doing more.
What is currently the most prevalent issue that officers are seeing in Lake Elsinore?
Prevalent issues, well, obviously traffic related is one of them with all the speeding that's going on. After COVID, things have changed. For some reason, people like to speed. But as far as crime-related, homelessness is a big one because a lot of our homelessness are involved in a lot of petty thefts and just overall issues with businesses, loitering, that type of thing. As far as major crime, we're not having major crime right now. A lot of it's kind of a spot here and there, but a lot of it's related to theft. A lot of people are leaving their expensive belongings in their vehicles in plain sight. Even though the vehicle's locked, it only takes a second to bust that window and to take your laptop that's sitting on the seat, your purse. A lot of that is going on lately. So just make sure and even shut your garage doors at night because garage doors are being left open and thieves are looking around. It doesn't matter which neighborhood you live in. My neighborhood, the same. Thieves are driving around. They're riding their bicycles. They're walking. They're looking for belongings in vehicles and that type of thing. You got to make sure you keep those belongings safe.
That's a great. When we're not quite at San Francisco level yet, where you have to leave your cars open.
Yes.
I mean, like that.
I don't even leave change in my vehicle. You look at my vehicle, you're going to find nothing. So.
Yeah. But
it helps.
Don't leave your sunglasses out. People will grab that stuff. Ladies, do not leave your purse in the car. You leave your purse in the car, you're just asking for it. I mean, come on now. True. That's just not good. Christmas presents out in the open at Christmas time, man, that's been going on since Jesus was a boy.
It hasn't changed.
No, it's just, I mean, man, I'm just saying, well, maybe not since Jesus was a boy. I mean, some things
no, I've been doing this 28 years, and it's the same thing.
Right. It's the same game. So protect your stuff. You're the first line of defense, as they say. Are there any plans to incorporate new municipal code to leverage enforcement against the homeless, such as possession of shopping carts, etc.? We do have.
Yeah, we have a lot of that. Right now, a lot of your sheriffs, including our sheriff, is the one heading it up, is trying to repeal Prop 47. Yeah. If Prop 47 gets repealed, a lot of this is going to change. Guarantee it. So
I got to say, Sheriff Bianco needs. I mean, he is so right on the money as far as this goes, and he's not alone, because a lot of us were just going crazy when Prop 47 was first even proposed, and we knew what it was going to happen. 57's in the same boat.
Same thing.
And AB 109 obviously didn't help, because that was the realignment where basically they pushed a lot of state prisoners down into the local jails. They're not designed for that.
Yeah, so now low level offenders we can't put them in jail. It's all, you're pretty high end.
It takes 10 years to build a prison or a jail.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and nobody wants them, so it's just politically.
Yeah, so all that created this mess, but hopefully we can get that repealed and make some big changes.
Yeah, it's got my support. All right, we got some good things, people. Thank you for trying to keep our city clean. Appreciate that. That was from Maria. Yeah, I think it was Maria. And Dana says, "Thank you, PD, for your support. Big blue hearts."
Thank you.
And let's see here. This person with just a tiger face says, "You guys are the best." Wow, that's really nice of you. All right.
That's good.
How are we doing on time? 4 minutes. All right. So I want to thank you a lot for
thank you.
coming
It's
out.
great.
I appreciate having the conversation. We used to do the coffee and the police the sort of thing once upon a time, but I think this is better with respect to being able to go ahead and reach a larger audience, especially in the afternoon. So,
and it gives me an opportunity to know what's going on throughout the city. And like I said, I'm always at the station. You can call me at any time. You can just call the station at 951-245-3300. Ask to talk to me. If I'm not there, you can talk to one of my lieutenants or sergeants, and they'll address any of your concerns. Or you can email me at jrayls, Jrayls, at riversidesheriff.org, and I'll respond to your email. I get it all day long. I get emails from the community, so that's how I know where to put my resources and how to address things that are going on.
very good, very good. I would say, and I'm just going to put it out there, have seen a massive improvement, especially during the past 4 years. The officers, the engagement, the leadership, all of that is starting to really go ahead and kind of shine through. I feel like in the past we had our captains were shifting out, in and out, shuffling in and out as they were kind of either moving on to other things, and although we did have a couple of really good guys that came through that had a history with the city, they knew the city from the patrol days, a lot like you, that they weren't around long enough. I've been doing this 12 years. I feel like it takes years to do anything, right, to effectuate real change, especially at the municipal level. So having you in there for 4 years has been great. Good. I do appreciate it.
Well, and I've got to say that the city's been a big part of this. There's a lot going on as far as even graffiti. The city is so fast with moving graffiti. I drive a little bit every day. I hit those locations where I know graffiti is and get pictures myself, just because old gang guy, I like to keep track of that. So the city gets it down within hours. So that's huge. It didn't used to be that way.
We have a whole truck.
So as far as keeping the city clean, that's the city doing that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That pretty much concludes, takes our time. I want to thank everybody who came out and joined the podcast, the folks that asked questions. They were great questions. We will be doing this again next month. I will be seeking out a new special guest. And once again, thank you. Keep sending in your questions, and we'll try to incorporate those into our next podcast. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.